Choose. Well, anyway, we're take two. So here we go. Anyway, we're talking about the Spurs victory over the Pelicans. As I stated, the Spurs won 122 to 113, 10th in the West. And we were going to get Ben's take on this magnificent win for our San Antonio Spurs, even though they did squander a 20-point lead. Jakob Portal, yes, didn't put back that dunk, that putback, which missed. He should have dunked that ball. That's an issue that we've kind of had with Jakob. Jonas, that's your boy. So we're going to go ahead and let Benjamin tell us what he saw in tonight's game.
So, Jakob Pertl and Drew Eubanks did not score a whole lot tonight. I think between the two of them, they scored 12 or 14 points. However, between the two of them still, they had 25 rebounds. So where they don't score, they make up for in other areas of the game. And I think there was one possession, Pertl had 4 offensive rebounds, and I think it was that one where he couldn't finish the layup. But that has been a recurring issue with him not being able to finish around the basket. And I think, again, like we've been saying, yes, some of those you have to dunk them. Some of them you can't. And if there's too many people in there, just punch it out, reset. There's nothing wrong with resetting the offense. I think a lot of times he in particular freaks out and kind of says, "Oh no, I have the ball. Is anyone near me? I'm just going to tap it back," instead of actually trying to, gather the ball, go back up, and just make a layup. So I think that's going to be something they have to talk about. But the defense was solid pretty much up until Derek White got injured. And the offense, Greg Popovich mentioned this after the game, the offense stuck a bit when he was out of the game. And a lot of that is because Marco Bellinelli is a ball sticker, if you will. And so I think that's going to have to be something they look at seriously if this Derek White issue or his injury becomes a long-standing issue for at least for the rest of this bubble time. So I think, they've got a few things they have to work on, and with Houston coming up next, and with Houston probably going to actually try to win the game, they want to stay out of that 7th seed situation. I would imagine they're going to, play all of their guys regular minutes. They're not going to really give the Spurs a break. So we might see a new Spurs rotation, and hopefully it has more Quindary Weatherspoon than it does Marco Bellinelli, but we'll see.
Yeah, I just want to give a quick shout out to the people who are watching right now. Tim Rodriguez, Aaron Apolinar, Mariana. She put Debo came and clutch. Thank God that he did. And what else did Mariana say? Down here she put, but to be honest, Jakob helped out big too. Jakob did help out. My displeasure with Jakob is he's just a little too tentative at times. I want to see him be a little bit more assertive. The guy is 7 foot tall, for God's sakes. Dunk the damn ball. Don't be scared. I mean, if DeMar DeRozan can go out there and dunk the ball, he's not 7 foot tall. Jakob should have no issues. Rudy Gay dunked the ball, for God's sakes, today with both hands. Come on, Jakob. And Christopher Summers says, I am very displeased in Pop, DeMar, and Reese playing way too many minutes. Want to see nothing but younger players play. That I think we all do. Joe Garza says, go Spurs, go. Aaron also says, are we sure this is good Spurs or ass Pelicans? Mariana says, third quarter was horrible. Yeah, the third quarter was horrible. I'm not going to lie. It was very bad. So let's go ahead and get Jonas's take here, since the Jakob Portal, big time Jakob Portal fan, one of Jakob Portal's biggest supporters. He's also the guy who came up with the nickname for Jakob Portal, Block Up Portal. So Jonas, what do you got to say for your boy?
Yeah, so big fan of his, and I'm hoping that the Spurs do eventually re-sign him this offseason, because I need to get my Block of Pirtle jersey, but I need a new contract in order to do that first. But just to go back to the point that Ben already made on Jakob, and we can go ahead and beat the dead horse, because it's already dead as far as Jakob's dunking, especially here in the bubble, what his offensive production has been. He really kind of set. Like, if you want to see what my expectations are for Jakob, it's what he did against the Jazz. Like, that is what he should be night in and night out. Against the Jazz. And, double, 19 points. I think he had something like 13, 14 rebounds. That's called doing work. And, Former Spur put it quite eloquently last season when he said board man gets paid, and this is Jakob's chance to get paid. And I need to at least see, if you're not going to do it on the glass, and if you're not going to do it in terms of points, you can advance stat me to death. But we look at I think it was a Sixers game when it came down to it, and if Jakob would have dunked that ball when DeMar passed it off to him, and he had a 3 to 4 inch advantage over everybody else around him, then we're talking about having won 5 games now in Orlando rather than just or 6 games rather than just 5 games now. So that's like, you got to at least give me something beyond the advanced stats. Show me that you can do something. You can't shoot free throws. You can't score regular baskets. Okay, well then give me 4 blocks, 3 blocks a night, and give me double-digit rebounds. And tonight, Jakob did his job as far as I'm concerned. Foul trouble is still something that they need to work on, but you like to at least see the aggressiveness, and he's going to get attacked. He's a little bit slower for a big man. And, he's just reacting rather poorly to some guards getting in there. But if we can get some better perimeter defense going on too, maybe that helps out the Jakob situation.
Yeah, we have some fans here. Tanya Peters joining us from YouTube says Jakob Portal didn't do good on D. On Zion just played like ass. And, the problem is that you have Zion Williamson, which is a big boy. He's like, 280 plus? Jakob, even though he's 7 foot, I believe that Zion has the advantage as far as the positioning goes, because he can just kind of push him out of the way no matter how tall Jakob is. Like a freight train coming at you. To his defense, I would like to see Jakob be a little bit more assertive if he's going to take that charge against Zion. You can't be tentative, because Zion's just going to mow you down. If you're going to take the charge, take the charge. Like, step up, get right in his face, and take that charge. He can't just try to take a charge being lazy. You can't keep moving if you're going to take a charge. You have to have your feet set. You have to have your body stationary and take the impact. It's easier said than done when you have somebody like Zion coming at you like a runaway freight train. At times, I think Zion gets not Zion, but Jakob gets in trouble down in the paint. He does need some help, because they're gonna go against some of the bigger, more athletic players there. And it is unfair to say, hey, we need Jakob to go ahead and clamp down and be a clamp down defender on some of these big men, because a lot of other people have trouble defending them as well. So we need to get some help to Jakob down in the paint. But we're doing the best we can with what we got. We got a limited roster, and we looks like we also lost one Derek White for how many games? We have no idea. Just looked like he had an injury to his knee. I forgot exactly what they said. I think it was a knee contusion. The official report said. So no word yet on that. Hopefully we'll hear something soon. And maybe he just might miss a game or two. But if he misses the entire rest of the season, which is just a couple games, it could spell doom for us. So Wesley, thoughts on tonight's game?
Yeah, well, I'm just going to say this. Tonight was a solid win all the way around. I thought in that third quarter, when Derek did go out, you're alluding to that, Joe, is that the Spurs fell real flat, and it looked like they were going to give it all back and then some. They just looked lost. Derek is the linchpin to this team, and we were talking about this off air in our chat together. Let's just face it, Spurs fans, Derek White is the best player on this team right now. Yes, I know that DeMar DeRozan is very capable of taking over in the fourth quarter, and he's done so. He's played magnificently in fourth quarters of late down the stretch. But Derek White does everything on this team that we know is needed. Look at his charges that he takes every game. He's got to be leading the league in charges since they've begun in the bubble. He's like number 2 now in 3-point shooting, or number 1 in 3-point shooting in the league now in the bubble. The guy is just coming into his own. It reminds me a little bit of the torch that we saw passed, from the big three down the chain. It just, after a while, you just knew it was Manu's team, then it became Tony's team, and so on and so forth. And just I think we're going to see that this is Derek's team, and that he's going to be a person that really gives a chance to his teammates to be able to play off of him and do other things. So kudos to him, and gosh, I hope he's not hurt badly. It's going to be a tough time if they don't have him at all. The one thing that I can tell you is that we don't know. Sometimes those look scarier than they are. And if as long as he's able to come back, even if he has to miss one game, if they can somehow manage the guys and get a win out of it, being back for that second game would be huge. But it's really kind of scary at this point because you went 4-2, and Joe, don't look now. You had said it at the very beginning before all this started that if the Spurs were going to make a playoff run, they would have to go 6-2, and here they are, 4-2 with 2 games looming right there in front of them. I do want to mention this, guys, before I turn loose to you. I feel like there is some unfairness in the way that the setup is right now for the playoffs, because if you look, the Grizzlies and the Blazers have more games that they've played than the San Antonio Spurs do. So the amount of percentage of wins that they could get versus losses, because if you really look, you really study, you see in the loss column where they really are pretty much tied in the loss column, but they don't have enough wins comparatively. I think 2 wins down, and they're not going to be able to make that up. So they have to rely on other teams to lose. And I just find that to be quite a bit unfair to the Spurs to not be able to have the ability. It's not crying over spilled milk if they don't make it. It's because they didn't do things during the regular season. But just want to get y'all's take on that tonight too at some point. Thanks, dudes.
I wanted to say something too because everybody's saying a bunch of comments here. Jason Garcia, he says, give credit to the Pelicans strengthening and conditioning staff. Zion looks winded after 3 months off. Peter Garland says, great win, Derek. So important. Derek is important because Derek White helps run the Spurs offense. He's the better point guard, out of DeJounte. Or DeJounte, and you can Derek. Derek is the better point guard as far. Not saying that DeJounte is horrible out doing what he does. DeJounte just has a different skill set. He's great. He's fast. He's athletic. Great at creating his own shot. And Derek isn't really flashy, kind of like DeJounte, but Derek is methodical and he's smart, has a high basketball IQ. It helps the team get better out there on the court, setting them up in great positions to score. And without him, I think we're going to struggle a little bit. We're going to have some of our guards step up, and basically the guards we have out there are going to be Bryn Forbes, we have Lonnie Walker, we have DeJounte Murray, and we have Patty Mills, who really hasn't played much or of any minutes lately because they're sitting him out. Let's see, we have Paul Saldana. He says DeMar is San Antonio's best point guard. DeMar is really good. DeMar came to play in that fourth quarter, no doubt. You're not going to hear me give any DeMar slander on this show. DeMar has been one of our better players all year. So I have nothing but good things to say about him. If he decides to leave, I wouldn't be mad at him. I would, at this point, I have mixed emotions. I don't know how I would feel. Do we still want him here, or do we want him to leave? I guess if the price is right, keep him. If he agrees to it, I'll go ahead and keep him. But, we have to look at how everything fits in the complexion of us moving forward and growing our youth. Alexander Mesquita says, yeah, just tuned in. So happy that y'all are talking Spurs after a game for an hour or more. Yes, we're going to be talking Spurs for a little bit here. Paul Saldana says, trade DJM, DeJounte Murray. Can't shoot, too many turnovers. Too many times DeJounte makes the wrong play. It's just the difference in between Derek and DeJounte. There's just different minds. Go ahead and read some of the box before I pitch it over to you guys. We have DeMar DeRozan, who played 33 minutes, 27 points on the night. DeJounte Murray, 32 minutes. He had 18 points on the night. Jakob Poeltl, 22 minutes. He had a whole 4 points on the night. Lonnie Walker, 29 minutes, 7 points. Derek White, 20 minutes. He had 16 points. Marco Beninelli, your favorite player, Wesley. He played 20 minutes. He had 14 points. Drew Eubanks, 23 minutes, 8 points. Rudy Gay, 28 minutes, 19 points. Keldon Johnson, one of my favorites, 25 minutes, 9 points on the night. Quindary Weatherspoon played a whopping 1 minute in tonight's game. 1 minute. And they gave those minutes that we should have been giving to Quinn to one Marco Bellinelli. How does that make you feel, Ben?
Not great, Bob. That was way too many minutes for Marco, and I apparently had the worst take on Twitter this week, according to some people, that Marco shouldn't be getting those minutes because they're now not going to anybody who can develop. And then, so whatever, you know what? Come at me with your opinions. Great. That means I get to talk more about it, and that's what we're all here for, right? So, Marco getting 20 minutes, way too many minutes, maybe 10 minutes too many. I thought they should have thrown Quindary Weatherspoon in there, if only for defensive purposes, and maybe to see if they could unstick the ball after Derek White went out, maybe get some good ball movement in there, even if he's not shooting well or if he's not even really shooting at all. If he can move the ball and he can get other guys open, then it's all good. So that was something they could have tried, and Pop emphasized that the bubble is where they'd like to work on development of some players. And so, to me, again, if you're playing Marco 20 minutes, who are you developing? That's minutes that could be going to someone else where you can help them develop, get real game action, real game scenarios, even if it's in garbage time, which there was no real garbage time in this game. You can have guys figuring things out on the go. You can see how coachable and teachable they are for yourself. So I think, that has to be considered. And yes, I understand Marco Bellinelli has system knowledge, and he can make a few shots every now and then, and he hit some shots tonight conveniently. But to me, if you're going to go out there and you're going to run 4 guards and a big, get a guy who cares more about moving the ball than getting up his shots in bad form. I mean, Marco Bellinelli it's not only that he takes a lot of shots, he takes a lot of bad shots. He takes those, I'm going to pump you, I'm going to step through and I'm leaning, or he's just going to take something that's off balance. He's coming off a screen. He doesn't have his feet under him and he's falling away as he's shooting. He's not 30 anymore. He can't do that anymore consistently. So, again, just something to consider, especially against Houston, who is going to play very small. They can get away with it with Weatherspoon. And that's, of course, if Derek White is not available to play, or if Patty Mills is not available to play. But we kind of had the discussion offline. We think Patty Mills will probably get some minutes if Derek White is not going to play. So something to consider. And going to Wes's concern about, the Spurs not getting as many games, that's just the way this year works, man. That's bubble stuff. They had to decide, because if you have teams playing different amounts of games, you can't schedule things properly, even with all of the courts they have in Orlando. You're never going to get the number you want, because if you do that, then you basically have to say, well, we have to finish out an 82 game season, and they just don't have the timeline for that. So I think that's really the biggest issue. That's what it really came down to. And they just said, you know what, 8 games is going to be our number. That's going to be enough for the teams to kind of get back into the motion of things before playoffs. And then they added in the playoff game they added in the play-in game, I should say, for the 9th seed. And I think that's kind of to balance out the fact that not every team had played the same amount of games. So I don't think there's really anything that can be done. Obviously, this is going to be a one-time deal. And it's going to this whole season is going to be asterisk laden, according to smart people on Twitter. So, if you ask me, I think it's going to be harder to win a championship after a 3-month layoff. But who knows?
And with no home court advantage. I mean, let's be honest. If you're a number 1 seed right now, does it really matter if you're the number 1 seed? You've done all the work to have that advantage, and you're not going to have any advantage whatsoever. So exactly. Absolutely, there's no asterisks. No way.
Not to mention, the only advantage you get is you get to wear your home jerseys the entire time.
Yeah.
There you go. You have that. Let me read off some of the stats here before pitch to the rest of the guys. On the night here, or in this game, early game, San Antonio shot 44.9% from the floor. New Orleans shot 40. Rebounding edge, San Antonio, 1 rebound. New Orleans, 40 turnovers. San Antonio had 17. Pelicans had 19. Fouls, San Antonio, 27. Pelicans had 26. 3-point field goal percentage. San Antonio shot 11 of 28, 39.3% on the night. Pelicans shot 12 of 30, good for 40%. Free throw shooting. Spurs, 31 of 32, 96.9%. Pelicans, 17 of 22, 77.3%. The assist. Pelicans had 30, Spurs had 22. Steals. This was a big one for the Spurs. They were active on the defense. They had 12, the Pelicans had 5. Blocks, Spurs had 6 compared to the Pelicans' 5. Points in the paint. Pelicans dominated to nobody's surprise. 54 points compared to the Spurs, 36. But surprisingly enough, Spurs at the edge on fast break points. Spurs scored 17 fast break points. Pelicans only had 9. Bench points, it was almost dead even. Spurs had 50 bench points compared to the Pelicans' 49. Largest lead, Spurs, 20 points. Pelicans 1. When you sum it all up together, what do you think was the biggest factor in winning this game when things started to get away from us, Joe?
The biggest factor down the stretch was our veterans. And I know that I've come on here and I've complained enough about how I feel lied to by the organization about what our approach actually was to this bubble. I was ready to write off this year and go 0-8, but know that we were going to have Luka and Quinn and Keldon and Mezzi and Drew and DeJounte and Derek out there all kind of together to start building chemistry for when this season would pick up in 2021, hopefully around that Christmas time. But, it's become quite apparent to me that Pop has changed that tune. And he started changing it about 2 or 3 games ago, where maybe when we came out in game 1 against the Kings or in game 2 against Memphis, you could kind of see it as a youth movement. He's completely gone away from that. And the fourth quarter dominance that is DeMar DeRozan is because that's the way Pop draws it up. And same for Rudy Gay, who has come on very, very strong in the second half, most of the bubble, not all of the bubble, but most of the bubble. And like I told you guys, I like watching the opponent broadcasts because everybody kind of gets the opinion, and you can hear Sean and Bill talk about it, about this team as much as you really want to, but it's kind of the same things that if you watch all the games, you already know. So not knowing exactly how the Pelicans are approaching things, if you look at their broadcast team, they have one Antonio Daniels, former Spur right there. Also former BGSU alumni like myself from Bowling Green, Ohio. But down the stretch, they were talking about how the Pelicans were at a disadvantage. And that's something that you wouldn't normally, as Spurs fans, we wouldn't normally say and associate when we look at our roster versus their roster for the final 10 to even 5 minutes of that game. But they said experience and reps in crunch time is why the Spurs were going to take this. And every time we went down there and the ball was in DeMar or Rudy's hands or even Marco, and they were saying these guys have been there before, whereas they have a whole young group in New Orleans where JJ Redick might be the only one who's really kind of been there before. So he's trying to tell his young group around him to get in place. And then Pop goes ahead and goes old, and these are guys who just know what they need to do. And whether it's DeMar's ISO ball that we see in the fourth quarter, or it's Rudy just taking over and taking the ball maybe too much, or Marco's ill-advised shots, these veterans are kind of leaning on what they've done before to get themselves a win that they've done, over 10 years each in the NBA, and they know that it's worked. And tonight it worked for the Spurs. So that's what I think it comes down to, is it's our veterans. Now, I want the youth movement. Don't get me wrong here. But when you're looking at winning a basketball game versus development, You win with your veterans, and we won with our veterans. What's it going to cost us in 2021? That has yet to be seen. But if you want to win the bubble, we're winning the bubble right now. Thank you, DeMar and Rudy.
Yeah, they've actually kept us in a lot of these games. The OG Rudy Gay, man, he's been doing his thing. And Wesley, what do you contribute? The biggest factor in us winning in tonight's game?
Yeah, I concur with what Ben and Jonas are both saying. I honestly think, to take a little bit of the take that we normally hear from Jonas, I think it's the development of some of the players that I considered, and I know we talked about this and bantered about this, to be veterans that are starting to really shine. It's the Derek Whites, it's the DeJounte Murrays that, again, I hadn't really thought of this, and Jonas pointed this out last game, and he was right on the money. I think of those guys as stone cold veterans, and they're not really. I mean, they've had a year and a half each, maybe, in their playing development, but they're taking that next step. They're getting a chance to shine out on that court. You get a Lonnie Walker who's still really up and down right now. He had 6 assists tonight. He had some good moments. And then he also had some moments that were, you got a lane wide open. You didn't take the ball down their throat and jam the ball. What do I take from this? Where do we go from here? I think honestly, what you're seeing from Pop is a bit of a balanced approach, which is frustrating to anybody that wants to see that youth movement get their chance. And I to some extent want to see that, but the other part of me wants to see this team a chance to go to the playoffs, because I'll be honest with you, getting a chance, even if it's only 4 games, 5 games against a Lakers squad, is getting to see that prep going into a playoff series, and game by game, the breakdowns and the things that are going to happen, albeit in a different situation than it normally would be, with the travel and with the different items that would go into that. It still is, it's still a lot that really could help these young guys continue in their own mindsets and with their own development. But in terms of actual PT, let's be honest, I'm going to be the third one on this bandwagon. The Marco train has got to end. I just, at some point, I don't know how it is that he can go in and just shoot you almost out of a game. Yes, he's making shots, but then he's turning right around, not getting back on D and giving up another two or three. He's getting blown by every time somebody gets the ball on him, because they know they can beat him anytime they want to. And generally, he's a volume shooter. He's getting up volume shots to try to make his buckets. Whereas if you want to see what mostly comes out of tonight, Joe, look at Keldon Johnson. This is a great example, a guy that we haven't talked about yet. 9 points, 2 of 3 shooting, 4 of 4 from the line, and how many hustle plays? How many times did he defend well with Zion early, especially in the first half, and even in the third quarter, when things started to tighten up, there he was with just a veteran mindset. He has great footwork. He's getting into the lane. That guy is going to be a beast because of what's going on right now in this bubble. And I know that Pop is hesitant. He always has been to play rookies up to a certain point. And so the fact that he's even putting them in and really, the guts of the game or close to it is I think that's hard for Pop to some extent, but I think it's the right call. He needs to get more of those minutes. To me, that's where, if we say they activate Patty for the next game, yeah, sure, he should play. Patty will give you energy. Patty will give you some shots down and play Keldon Johnson a heck of a lot more minutes and put you in there to defend Harden and Westbrook. But that's the take for tonight. It's just that you saw the older guys like Ben and Jonas said that really played well. Rudy is playing very well. DeMar is playing very well. But it's not going to matter in these last 2 games if you don't get equal contributions, and especially if Derek White's out. What's it going to cost you is a chance to really make the playoffs when you want to. We just know that they're not going to have enough firepower if those guys aren't going to be on the floor in terms of defense, or even just in terms of overall presence in the game. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot of great things that happened tonight. It's great that the veterans came through tonight, but at some point, are you going to give Keldon and Q a chance to get in there down the stretch and take you home? If they lose the next game, for sure, they'll probably be out, and I bet you'll see a whole different kind of play for the Utah game. But still, we're still in it. Still a good win. Still a balanced approach.
Got a question for you, Ben. One of our viewers here asked a really good question. He's in contention right now for being the best question asked during this live stream, which we're going to wind up giving a prize to the best question submitted by one of our viewers. Paul Saldana says, "What's the ceiling with the young guards, namely Lonnie Walker and Derek White?" And he says to also throw in DeJounte Murray in there. "I've been trying to find a comparable duo," he says. What do you think the ceiling is?
That's tough. DeJounte Murray has already made a second-team All-Defensive team. I think, obviously, the ceiling for him would be first team. And I think there's, right, that's a no-brainer. That's an easy one. But Lonnie Walker and Derek White are a little harder. Lonnie Walker, he has to become much more consistent. I think if he becomes a lot more consistent and you know what you get out of him every single game and you can play him consistent minutes because of that, he could become a very good lead combo guard for you. And the same can be said of White. Derek White has already shown that he's a much more confident shooter. And he's already shown that he can hit those shots too, which always helps. And I think he's got a little bit of work to do with his handle. All these guys do. DeJounte Murray was loose with it at times tonight. Just about everybody was a little too loose for my liking. And like we said, there were too many turnovers. I think we said there were 17 turnovers. Or sorry, yeah, no, it was 17 or more than that. 17. And so you can't have that many games. You can't have that many turnovers and win games. And games come down to turnovers, free throws, and they won this game tonight because the Spurs got to the line over 30 times, and they only missed, I think, one or two shots. So great night from the free throw line. But going back to the question, DeJounte Murray, his ceiling, first team All-Defensive team, I would say second or third team All-NBA when it comes down to it, because you really got you got to do a little bit of math because you're thinking, okay, how old is Chris Paul? How old is Russell Westbrook? How old is James Harden? How long are they going to continue playing at elite levels, kind of thing. So you're kind of assuming at some point those guys drop off. So I think for him, first team All-Defensive, second team All-NBA. Derek White can be a guy who's going to go out and he's going to be a guy you can rely on as your guard. You can tell him, okay, I need you to go out. I need you to get me 15 points, 5 assists, and rebound the ball a little bit. He's going to go out and do that. And Lonnie Walker can be something similar if he plays consistently. He has the mental fortitude to do it. I know he does. He's a tough dude. He has not had an easy life, and he has made it this far. So I know that's a guy who's going to work his tail off. So it's just at some point it will come in the form of him being consistent on the floor. And I think when that happens, he'll be in a similar situation as Lonnie Walker. And I fear, or he'll be in the same situation as Derek White, rather. And I fear that the Spurs will end up losing one of them because they can't pay him. That's where the ceiling is. I think they're going to be good enough to where you have to pay them, but the Spurs, being the Spurs, are not going to be able to pay them, and they're going to have to let them walk. And everybody's going to be very upset. And we're going to come back to this takeover, and I'm going to look like a genius after 50 horrible predictions before that comes true.
Oh, there you go.
That's my big take.
Jonas, we have a question being asked. I told one of our viewers, who is Super Mario, watching us from Periscope right now. We've actually had two viewers, should I say, that gave some really good and interesting questions to us. This one is asking, do we see DeJounte Murray ever coming back to his form before the injury? He was a defensive beast beforehand. What do you think?
Okay, you have to qualify DeJounte's second all-team NBA. Look at those other players that were out there on the court with him for a second. Okay? Those were established NBA veterans. I think he made it in 2017-18 season, if I'm not mistaken. That would have been the year that Kawhi was down, but you still had Manu Ginobili's veteran presence out there, and you still had Tony Parker out there as just kind of a guidance step. And this team was still one of those heavy contenders. Not like a great contender, but it was a more veteran-laden team. And so DeJounte got to go out there and do a little bit more in terms of being a little bit more aggressive. And I don't think that I really don't think that DeJounte has lost a step. We're just seeing more of him. He played 81 games, and I think it was 17-18, and then he missed an entire year last year, and then this is a shortened year, and already his numbers are up comparatively and through 55 games, and they were through 81 games. So what to turn it back to the listeners is, what is your expectation of him? Because if you're expecting at or better stats than before the injury, then you've already got that. If you think that his success individually is reliant on wins, then you have a totally different team than you did before. So I think that you have to look at those in like a much broader picture. That's where I have to turn around and ask you what your expectations are and how you're gauging DeJounte's success, because his numbers are up, and this team, as it gels, will gel to be a better team overall together with DeJounte Murray out there. We've already seen the trade DeJounte remarks here in the chat. And I think that if you do that, you're doing a disservice to this franchise because of his defensive prowess and what he provides as far as he himself, I view as a combo guard. Because like Pop said, recently to the media, you have four guys on the floor at any given time who can bring the ball up and run this offense. And the way that everybody outside of Jakob Poeltl moves, because Jakob's job is the paint, so that's not a slight to him, that's just a recognition of his role. So the way that everybody else moves around him is something that DeJounte gives you. And we don't have I understand we have a lot of guards, guys, but we don't have a lot of guard depth. And it's been one of those clogged positions. We've talked about it before, but when you really sit back and look at it, and DeMar DeRozan can change this whole picture too by just leaving. And that's an option that he has. And it's not a Spurs decision. It's an actual DeMar DeRozan decision. But we're looking at like a Bryn Forbes. He's a free agent this year, so he could even be gone. And if you go ahead and let him go, I see you guys. I see you guys. I hope he stays. I hope he stays. But you have Lonnie out there, and I think Lonnie's height, like his ceiling, to go back to that question that you got, Ben, sixth man. He's a great sixth man for this team. That's a compliment to Lonnie, because he can come out there in the second unit and take over things, and he can provide you first unit support when you need it. When a Derek White goes down, then you can go ahead and slide him in there. If he can kind of pick up what Derek, a little bit more of Derek's skill set. Derek's ability from three that has really come on in the bubble here is something special. And I've always kind of viewed Lonnie, I know a lot of people view him as a scorer and as a striker. I think that I view him more as a 3-and-D guy. And he's flourished in that role in the bubble where he sets himself up for a corner three and then just waits for it to get kicked out to him, and he nails it. His defense, it's very instinctive. So when I look at DeJounte, I see all these pieces around him, and he's going to get better. But if you're expecting him to take over a game and dominate the ball like Russell Westbrook, I don't even want that here. So if that's kind of the DeJounte you're hoping to see, I don't want that. So I'm not even going to put that out there. So I'll leave it to you guys. You guys ask me, put it in the chat here, and Joe can bring it back around. But what version of DeJounte, what are your expectations for him before I try to tell you whether he'll ever reach those for you?
Here's another good question by Gilbert Morales, joining us from Periscope. He says, seeing how these young guys are progressing, do you guys see DeMar returning with this team, I guess DeMar returning with seeing this, I guess the progression of the young bucks coming into their own. You think that this makes DeMar DeRozan that much more hungry to want to return and see what these guys can actually do with the complete season in front of them? What do you think, Wesley?
Wow. Okay, that's a great question. And the answer to that is, do you think, to answer a question with a question, which is always dangerous, do we think that DeMar in this time of his life is more about getting the contract that he knows he could have, which is the money, which is going to be pretty lucrative if he opts in, which for sure for a year puts him at, I believe, close to 30 mil. I'm going to say it's like 27, 28 mil, something like that, as if he opts in. And then on top of that, he's got, young guys that I know is exciting to be around, and that he can have a more free flowing style. But then again, not to bring this up because I know this is a sore subject right now, but you bring LMA back into the fold, and the style of basketball that we're seeing right now is going to go bye-bye. And so the question really becomes with DeMar is he going to swallow a little bit of the contract that he could have, the money that he could have? And again, state income tax for an NBA player, no state income tax is a huge deal for an NBA player making a lot of money, keeping more of his money, or at least it should be. Um, but I'm going to tell you this. I honestly, my gut tells me he does not. My gut tells me that he goes to a contender to add to a piece that may be missing. You look at a team out in the East that's not going to make much noise this year, but maybe is primed for the near future in the Brooklyn Nets, with depending on what KD does when he comes back and how well he can come back off his injury. Kyrie, all of a sudden you add a third guy in there like a DeRozan, who could probably fit in pretty well with those fellas in that third type of a role. We've seen that of recent days. The question becomes is the trend of the free agent trying to team up with another band of possible contenders, is that going to be his mindset, or is he going to opt in for the money to because honestly, let's be honest, the best contract he can earn next year is with the San Antonio Spurs. To be honest, he's not going to get that kind of coin over a 1 year period. Now over a long term period, he could earn some cash and certainly make another great contract. But his mindset really as to where he is with this team, I guarantee right now he sees that this team is probably 2 to 3 years away from being truly more in the middle of the Western Conference and not towards the bottom or fighting for playoff spots like they are now. So is he patient enough to take that on? And I think the answer to that is no. Just quickly, also, I just wanted to point this out because it's such a great point that was being discussed, about DeJounte Murray. I think everything that you guys said about that was right on the money, but I also want to point this out too. Not only was DeJounte coming back to try to prove to everybody that he could be the same type of player, but he was also coming back to a team that had been taken over by Derek White as the starting point guard. And thus, how much does that play in your head as well? What is my role? What am I supposed to be? What does DeJounte think he should be at this point? Because, for the start of the season, and Joe, you can attest to this, I've been saying all along those two guys represented basically two of your best league players on that roster. They should play together because we saw positionless NBA come in and play. And to be honest, you'd be better off having a more offensive-minded Derek White next to a defensive-minded and a more passive and pass-first guard in DeJounte Murray. So, I don't know why it took so long for it to get to that point. I don't second-guess Poppy's one of the greatest, if not the greatest of all time, but I just felt like maybe some of the things that went through DeJounte's mind was also because he's pressing too to showcase that he not only came off the injury, but he could still be the number one, point guard in San Antonio, even as he was watching Derek nearly take out the number 2 seed in the playoffs a year ago. So just a food for thought there to add on to that. But those are both great questions.
So to add on to the DeMar DeRozan stuff, I've made my opinion very clear. And I think that DeMar DeRozan will opt in for his last year like Wes said it's worth just under $28 million. It's like 27.7. So if he were to opt out and try and become a free agent this offseason, where the salary cap is going to be lower than expected, teams are going to be hesitant to pull the trigger on guys. There's just a lot of uncertainty heading into next season. I think he says, screw it, I'll take my payday and I'll stick around here for one more year. But after that, I'm not really trying to come back and get another contract out of San Antonio. I'm going to go and I'm going to become a part of the free agency class of 2021, and I'm going to find a place where I can still do what I'm doing. I can take over when I need to, but they're probably a better contender, probably someone in the East, because the East is garbage. And he's also familiar with Toronto. He may very well end up going back to Toronto, to be honest with you, on a discounted deal. Granted, this all comes down to what Toronto is able to do with their salary cap and what that situation looks like, but that's a lot of what I've heard so far. So we'll see if that actually becomes true. Again, we won't know for another 2 years. So we have to, or at least next offseason. So we have to wait on that. But, you know, if DeMar DeRozan can help them get to another playoff postseason next year, he gets to keep doing what he's doing. He can take over in fourth quarters when he needs to. I really just wish he would work on shooting threes. It's going to always bother me, and I can't get over it. It sucks because he is a good player, but he just doesn't shoot threes, and it's hard to be a two guard in this league if you don't shoot threes. It's hard to be a great two guard in this league if you don't shoot threes, I should say. So I think, yeah, he's going to be back for another year, but I wouldn't count on him being in San Antonio for more than one more season.
Hey, Ben, just want to say this too. If he doesn't come back, the message sent that's already been stamped in San Antonio at this point, now that the big three has gone off to their twilight, the message then would be that they've been passed up by Marcus, Morris, who didn't come in and decided to egg the Spurs on, that they've been left at the doorstep by so many. And if he leaves them at the doorstep, man, that does some serious psychological damage to players, that would even have entertained the thought of being a free agent come to San Antonio, at least in my opinion, based off what they are right now.
It's still more enticing than being a Knick.
Yes.
True.
And
enough.
I think that more than DeMar DeRozan, DeMarre Carroll is going to hinder whether a player comes here or not, just because we saw free agents might have seen us go get somebody that actually fits our system and then end up not fitting to even any extent of the imagination for DeMarre Carroll. But the whole DeMar thing, it makes sense if he wants to stay, but I don't think it hurts us if he goes, even to the outside perspective, just because look at how much youth is on this team. And this team, and we've already talked about, do we, and you see it again here in the comments tonight. Just go ahead and dump DeMar. Go ahead and dump, LMA. Thank goodness I haven't seen a dump Rudy tonight. That's finally starting to tone down a little bit. But, there's a fit here for DeMar. I said this the other day on Twitter. There's a fit here for DeMar. We know he fits with these young guys. I think that it's almost a little bit rejuvenating for a guy who just turned 31 years old, that DeMar DeRozan did, to be able to go out there and play with some of these young kids that have passion. I think that Keldon Johnson's hustle gives DeMar a little bit of hope. So if he stays, there's a spot for him. But, again, seeing in the comments, we've all seen the rumors and stuff like that too, where the Knicks are a good fit, are potentially a fit. With Thibodeau going up there and taking over the show, and RJ Barrett, and how how DeMar could fit into all that. And then the Lakers, I think, is my pick for where he would go if he's going to leave. Yeah, take a Compton kid back to LA. He gets to wear the purple and gold that his idol Kobe, shined in for so many years, and then he fits the LeBron James requirement of somebody in their early 30s who can distribute well. He's shown in San Antonio that he's willing to pass the ball a lot, so he can help score and take over when he needs to, when the load gets too big for LeBron or AD to carry. and give them a little bit of rest. And then he can also distribute if he's on the court with them together. Um, so that's just, I mean, not to turn this into the DeMar DeRozan free agency hour or anything like that, but there's a spot here for him. But if not, we have a great group of young guys. And I think that, again, just to go back to the previous question, DeJounte Murray is a part of that.
No, I got to say something too. I think I'm going to pick my winner here because I'm going to go ahead and give some Spurs swag and a Spurs HEB mask that I got earlier today from HEB. The Spurs mask that was the other Coyote swag that I picked up. That was something I picked up from a local artist here in San Antonio about maybe a week or so ago. But I did like the comment from Paul Saldana. I think he had a really good, insightful comment that got a lot of traction with us. So I'm going to go ahead and pick him as our winner for tonight. I'll go ahead and DM you, Paul. Thank you for watching, and you get our Spurs swag, our Spurs mask, and the Spurs Coyote swag. I'll go ahead and mail that off to you sometime tomorrow. I'll go ahead and DM you for your mailing information so we can get that sent out to you. But everybody, I really appreciate you guys.
What's the winning comment? What's the comment?
The comment was the one that he was talking about, the comparables, the young guards that we had as far as like DeJounte and Lonnie and even DeJounte Murray, and asking, basically what is the ceiling for these guys? I thought that was a really good question. Ben's response. So I'm going to go ahead and pick him as the winner for tonight. Let me go ahead and read the other comments that we Tony or not. He hopes DeMar leaves. I told him LaMarcus. I'm fine with LaMarcus leaving. I said DeMar. DeMar has probably kind of been the best player that we've had. Yes, if he winds up leaving, it opens the door up to some of these better the youth movement opening up, and we get to see some of these players, So I can see
Are
that.
they ready for it, though?
Yeah, that's the thing. As I can
the
see
real question.
Yeah, that's the question. It's like big question. Super Mario, I did like your questions as well. I'll go ahead and wind up picking up some other Spurs swag stuff here shortly, and I'll keep you guys in mind. I really like some of the questions that we had tonight, and I feel like it was warranted of some swag itself. So there were a couple of you guys here that I'm going to go back, look over here at the live stream, and I'll be getting in contact with you guys, see what we can go ahead and send off to you all, man. I appreciate y'all for watching. Really, we do. And engaging with us with these comments and everything. We couldn't do the show without you guys, so hats off to y'all. But moving forward, the Spurs have another couple games here in the bubble. I'm going to go ahead and look at the schedule here. They're going to be playing. We have a game Tuesday we play Houston, and then we finish off the season against the Utah Jazz on Thursday. They haven't announced. They just have the time for that one's at a 1 p.m. tip-off. That's going to be a hard.
It doesn't matter. We're all running on bubble time now.
Yeah.
We are, man. It's going to be a hard win for the Spurs. Could they win? Sure, but without Derek White, if he's not playing in that game, I don't know, man. I just say that this is going to be one that the Spurs are going to have a really tough time winning against the Utah Jazz as well. If we're playing against a full Utah Jazz squad and we're minus one of our better guards and better defenders out there in Derek White, these two games that we have coming up are going to be really hard for us to win. So given that, predictions, guys, you think we're going to win one of the last two, or are we going to lose to both of them? We'll start with you, Wesley.
I think the question was, are we going to win one of the last? Are we going to win one or both of the last two?
Yeah.
I
Either
guess
win one, or are we going to drop them both, or are we going to win one of the last two? Because I believe, like Wesley had said, I said the Spurs needed to go 6-2 to have a real good shot at getting into the playoff game, for a chance to get a playoff berth, meaning they would get the 9th seed and they'd still have to win in and play the 8th seed. But what do you see with the Houston and the Utah game? Do you think they're going to win one out of the two, or are they going to lose them both?
Well, I'll tell you, I think that my prediction stays alive if they win 2 games. I called 6-2 last Friday. I called 6-2 last Friday before this whole thing started, an hour before tip off, and the chance is still alive. Pop has been known to get the most out of his teams when he's needed to. We went on a 9-0 run last year to make the playoffs. I think that I really think with 2 games down and our futures kind of in our hands, I think we can do this one. Derek White with that knee contusion, it's a bruise, right? So don't get over blown by the word contusion. It's just a bruise. So rest, ice, compression, and elevate. That's what he's going to be doing for all of today and then probably part of tomorrow. As and then he'll come back refreshed and ready to go on Tuesday for the Rockets. He might get he might be limited a little bit, but I think that Pop is done tinkering as we move forward because we've seen a little bit of tinkering. I wouldn't say that we're done seeing Marco because Marco is a veteran presence. Pop loves him. He trusts him for whatever reason. I don't question Pop. I'm not going to question the guy who's taken an NBA team to the playoffs in 22 consecutive seasons. I'm not going to do that, but I think that he will go ahead and maybe be a little bit more selective as to when he chooses to use Marco, and that's going to rely on what our foul situation is. When we've seen Marco get minutes is when today with Derek White out, and then in the past when Jakob Poeltl has found himself in foul trouble and he wants to go to a little bit lengthier of a veteran when Rudy's already out there. Like that's who he kind of goes to spell Rudy on and off the court is almost Marco. Because then he almost trusts more than Drew Eubanks in the closing minutes. He'd rather have Rudy out there at the 5 and then maybe Marco at the 4, which is why we see that kind of situation play out. So I think we do it. We beat the Jazz once, which I did not think we were going to do. I had us losing that one. And that was without Donovan Mitchell. But I think that the comparison has been made enough times that this is an AAU tournament or this is March Madness and the youth is going to be is going to be favored in these matchups. And I think that that's what's going to help us against the Jazz. And I think that it's just going to be Rockets hatred that fuels us through Tuesday.
No doubt. So Ben,
Facts.
predictions, you think they're going to win both? Or are they going to lose both? Or are they going to split?
They're going to go 1-1. Frankly, when I spoke with Paul Garcia on the Project Spurs podcast, the Spurs cast, I think I said the Spurs were only going to win 2 games anyway. So they've already done better than what I said they'd do. So everything after this is playing with house money. But I think they go 1-1. I actually think the Houston Rockets are going to implode at some point. They're such a weird team. They could just as easily put up 130 on you as they could go, like 5 of 40 from 3-point land. So it's I really don't know what I'm going to see out of Houston in the game against the Spurs because again, they're the tallest starter they have. I think is 6'7". I mean, if you put Rudy Gay up against him and just say, "Hey, Rudy, post up, go to town," he's going to get someone in foul trouble or he's going to get buckets. Because he's done that the last few games. He's posted guys up and he's done really well. So I think the Houston game is more likely a win than the Utah game, again, because Donovan Mitchell is back. And frankly, the Stifle Tower scares the bejesus out of me. So I think the Spurs beat Houston, especially with the amount of rest they're going to get between the games. But they lose to Utah. It's hard to beat a team twice. It's hard to beat a team twice in the season. It's hard to beat a team twice in a bubble. So
True.
I think
that
is something to take into consideration. Yeah.
Wesley, you didn't give us your take. Spurs going to win out last 2 games? They're going to split 1-1? What's your prediction?
All right, Joe. So you and I had this team going 4-4 in the bubble. And I'm going to say to that, screw that prediction. They're going to win out. The San Antonio Spurs will make the playoffs. I'm going to say it right here and right now. They are going to win out and make the playoffs. And I will say this, I agree with Ben. Houston Rockets are a gigantic mess. One night, depends on what kind of Rockets team you get. The team that hits a gazillion 3-pointers or the one that's going to take a gazillion and miss them. Harden, dangerous. Westbrook, always dangerous. But the one thing that we've seen of the Spurs team in the bubble is that they can match up against any team that doesn't have a lot of bigs. And the Rockets don't have a lot of bigs. And I think you're going to see the Spurs play the brand of loose basketball that they've been playing, share the ball, and you're going to see a lot of, ISO ball from the Rocket standpoint, where Harden dances and does his thing and travels every possession. So, I think that is going to happen. I would not be a bit surprised to see Derek White out this next game just because of the rest factor. And if they can win without him, look out. I think the momentum carrying forward into a Utah Jazz game where just depending on, and this is where it comes down to, fellas, there's also the thought of what are the Jazz going to do? Who are they going to play? Because Utah, to me, is really one of those teams that has an outside chance of being, in the Western Conference Finals, if not even winning the Western Conference, because they've got the strength inside with the Gobert. They've got the defensive prowess. They have a really, really great player, and if he plays lights out like he's done in the past, Donovan Mitchell could light up anybody. And then, depending on what they get from Mike Conley, I mean, if they can get, the great Mike Conley that we've seen at times over his career, they could be a real threat. That's going to be the toughest game for the Spurs, even if they're, in full strength with the bubble team, because they're not in full strength, obviously with the people out that aren't there. But if they get Derek and have him going pretty much at 100%, I still like their chances. I just feel like this team has nothing to lose. When it's all said and done, if they don't make the playoffs, yes, okay, great. It's 22 years of unheralded playoff basketball. And folks in San Antonio, don't you dare look and say that this is a rain season. Look at how many teams have ever gone 2 decades of making the playoffs in a row. It does not happen at all. So the fact that they have gone 22 years and we're even talking about a 23rd, the vast majority of the players in the NBA weren't even alive when that streak started. That's how significant that streak is. So if it doesn't happen, okay. But you know what's still waiting in the wings? Either a top 10, top 12 pick in the draft. We're still talking about this team getting better no matter what. So what is there for them to fear at this point? I don't think there is. And so I really feel like, I'm going to be the knock on wood kind of guy. I'm going to go with Jonas on this one and say that I was wrong. They're 4-2 now. They go 6-2. I think Memphis slips up. I think it's Portland and San Antonio in a play-in situation. I got the Spurs going into the playoffs and losing to the Lakers in 5 games.
Right. Well, I say that the Spurs are going to split 1-1. I believe that they can beat Houston. I'm with Ben in this one, where I think they're going to wind up dropping that last game against Utah. They could surprise us, and they could win both games, and I'd be ecstatic. So it looks like my 4-4 prediction is out the window. That doesn't look like it's going to happen. I believe, who was it? It was Orlando, I believe, Jonas. He had that 6-2, so it's looking like he's going to be.
I have the 6-2. Orlando has the 5-3.
5-3. Okay.
Which he might end up being the right one if we go 1-1 here down the stretch. But what we talked earlier really quick about the Rockets and how they're playing for something. Well, so are the Jazz, and they're going to be playing down for it all the way down to the stretch too, because they have about a 1-game lead over the Mavericks. And when you look at, just in terms of wins, all the way from 4 to 6, they're all at 43 wins currently, and the Mavericks have 42. So our last 2 teams, while they're not playing for postseason, trying to get into the bracket or into the playoffs, they're already there. They're playing for seeding and trying to make sure they match up right against not getting the Lakers or the Clippers and maybe trying to get that 4 to 5 seed. If any one of them believes that the Clippers and Lakers are unbeatable.
Hey, Jonas, no, I can't let you slip by, dude. You predicted the Spurs were going to run the table and win the title. So you gotta stick with me, bud. They're going to make the playoffs. I still have faith.
Hold up. When did I say they were going to win the title?
You said, why not? I don't remember which one it was we talked about. You said that you could see them going 8-0 and winning the title. I think you were kidding.
Look at you, made Ben crack up.
It's one of
craziness.
It's one of those. Why not? When you're playing with house money, which is all this bubble is. Why not go out there and give it your all? So this. I mean, it's the playoffs, and this is what the thing I've always preached about the playoffs. In terms of why you don't tank to get out of them, or you don't tank for whatever, or just start throwing away the season because it's close, is because you got to make it to the dance. And once you make it to the dance, you never know what happens, but you can't win a title if you don't show up to the playoffs. That's a guaranteed. But once you get there, anything can happen. Injuries happen, illnesses happen. Hell, it could come down and you're playing the Lakers and LeBron James gets COVID. What then?
Wow.
And then the Lakers have to forfeit their series because they can't play the game to move the playoffs forward. I'm just saying. Like I said,
let's be honest. LeBron James is more likely to cramp up. Okay.
Look at this.
True.
Rudy just joined us.
You're all good. Turn the air off.
Yeah, Rudy Campos just joined us, and he
goes, "Make it to the dance, and anything can happen."
Check this out, Jonas. Rudy Campos just joined us, and he says, "Win the title. Who's smoking the good stuff?" That would be our friend Jonas Clark.
I did not. I need the record to reflect the fact that I did not say we would win the title.
He needs the tape.
I did not say we would. I did not say we would win the title. I said, why not? Why bet against the team and say that they couldn't though?
I think
Jonas, in a season where
I think Jonas might have been doing some day drinking that day. He might have been doing some day drinking.
I day drink every day. It's quarantine.
There you go. Well, he's not lying. Well, anyway, we're gonna go ahead and come to an end on this episode of the Spurs Takeover. Going on for quite some time now. We appreciate you guys tuning in and watching and engaging with us. We really appreciate you all. Thank you all so much. And before we go ahead and bring the show to an end, Jonas, where can they engage with you on social media?
At Jark Clonas on Twitter, JARKCLONAS. And through, I guess if you need to get a hold of me too, at Project Spurs. Hoping to have a new story dropping later on this week, maybe mid to late this week. Look out for it. Piece on the NBA G League and the bubble.
There you go. Wesley, where can they engage with you on social media?
Yeah, at Wesley Perk. Just excited to see sports back going. I know we all are. It's fun. I know we're always being silly about things too, but isn't it fun to be talking about realistic basketball and what it means and meaningful stuff, and even God willing that the MLB will continue to have their season. They can quarantine those that are COVID laden, but it takes a lot of burden and things off the world right now, and I know we all need that. So God bless everybody, and again, let's talk some sports anytime.
Ben, where can they engage with you, sir, on social media? I know you're avid on Twitter, so you're very active. Oh no, we lost Ben.
Oh no, I accidentally muted myself. That was not smooth.
Okay.
You can find me on Twitter at @the_Boomstein. Some would even say that I'm overactive on the Twitters. I will take all of your hate and redirect it into love for the Spurs and for college basketball, which we will not see for a very long time. It makes me sad.
And Paul Garcia wants to know who Ben would pick in the Spurs draft. That's a very good question, because if you want to know that, go to projectspurs.com and you can go ahead and find Ben's picks for everything that's upcoming for the NBA draft. And also make sure you go and follow Project Spurs on Twitter at Project Spurs for all your great Spurs information. We have a lot of great writers there at Project Spurs who cover everything in the scope of San Antonio Spurs basketball. So make sure you go ahead and follow them, and also go to the website and look at all the great articles we have from all the journalists there that are part of Project Spurs. And you can also follow me and engage with me on social media, on the Twitters at Two Shots Podcast, and it's all spelled out TWOSHOTS Podcast. So for Jonas Clark, Benjamin Bornstein, and Wesley Perkins, I'm Joe Garcia. Thank you guys for tuning in and watching another episode of the Spurs Takeover. And like we always say, spread the love, stop the hate, and be kind. We're out.